Hello, everybody. This is Chris Fennessy, and welcome to Creating a Biz App Solution, the Customer and Partner Journey. Welcome, everybody, to this session, and excited that we're able to present to you as a partner. Thank you to Ingram Micro, and appreciate the ability to share our story with everybody and talk about where we've come and where we're going. So today we want to talk about the process. We're going to talk through just how we've got here, what we've done, where we're at, how we began this whole journey. Talk about a story with one of our customers, Quick Draft, and then get into the solution itself so that you guys can actually see what's going on with everything, along with the apps that we've used. You'll see that we obviously have Power Apps in here, but we've also included almost the many of the other Microsoft solutions. You'll see SharePoint, you'll see Teams, you'll see Planner. Behind the scenes, you'll see Dynamics GP or Great Plains. You'll also see behind the scenes Dynamics for 365 or for sales. So a lot of solutions that we've done, and it's going to be fun to show you the information. We'll also get into a little bit of the guts of the system, the detail. We'll be able to share that information with you, and then lastly, here we'll kind of round it up with how the customer sees it, and just kind of look at that journey that we've had with everything. So today, you have me, and you have Rob Mooney from Trellis Point. You also have Chris Rogers from Quick Draft. Quick Draft is a conveying and exhaust system company. Their tagline is "Moving Things with Air." So Chris will tell us a little bit more what they do. But Rob is our technical consultant that actually built the solution with us and with Chris, along with their team. And so he'll be showing that along with Chris Rogers. So we're excited to be able to share this with you and show that information. I guess first of all, what I want to do is tell you real quickly about Trellis Point. So you can see that we're really a CRM focused organization. And when you look at Power Apps and where it comes from, that common data model really resides from the CRM solution. So it was a natural progression for Trellis Point to actually get involved with the biz apps, and as a partner, you might be looking at it and saying, "Well, can I do this? Is it something for me? Can our people do it?" And really, you can, because when you look at where the solution is built from and how it's evolved, the Power Apps platform with Canvas apps and model-driven apps really allows you, or it plays very well with your skill sets that you have as a partner. So I guess that's the first thing I want to share with you. You can see we've been a partner for a long time, really focusing on Microsoft products. We actually did some other solutions out there, but really went into the Dynamics and the Microsoft platform 100% a couple years ago. And when we saw that, we saw a huge growth. So as a partner, that's some other things you want to think about. If you're doing other platforms or other solutions, it's good. But when you really focus and look at what you're doing, and how you can resolve issues and do things quicker, really focusing on one solution really helps. And as we go through our process, we look at the different items. So when we say we're reputation over revenue, we're really focusing on working with the clients and making sure we're doing the right thing. When we say the business why, we're really diving into the needs and wants of an organization. And as you hear us talk with Chris and with Rob here, you'll see, how we got into the system and understood, well, what was the business reason why this? Why are we getting a phone call to do this? We don't want to just do something because it really needs to have a decision behind it and understand those pieces of parts. So when we talk about the business why, it's really understanding the people and what they do. And then obviously a methodology. You want to make sure as an organization that you have something in place that you can fall back on, follow through, make sure that you're doing the right things and the right steps so that you get it right throughout the process. So just a little bit about us and how we go through our methodology. So some of you have probably seen this too. But we really focus on this. It's the infamous three-legged stool where the analogy here is if they're not screwed in tight, that the seat's going to fall over, right? So when we talk about people, process, technology, we really talk about you as an organization, be it the partner or be it the customer, really have to know these three areas. The technology being the business apps, being the solution that we're working with, usually is going to get it right. But are the people aligned with what you're trying to achieve, and are the processes built out? So when we talk about a solution and when we work with organizations, what you want to do is make sure that the people understand what you're doing and the processes are written down and understood and worked through with everybody. So again, the three-legged stool is pretty simple, but it goes a long way to make sure that holds itself. So as we look at our process, we, without diving too much into this, we really get into a discovery and a decide, and that's usually the initial discussions. We try to put a technology roadmap that leads into a project roadmap with this. Now, as we think about the biz apps and how that works, it's really in the design and the delivery, because the tool set is there for you and allows you to do this really quickly. And as you'll see, this process that we went through was in about a 2 to 3 month period of time that we did this, and it was pretty significant on how we achieved the results that we did. So you want to look at your framework. You want to look at your process and really make sure that you have something in place to do that. Now, not only do you go through the process, but then you want to make sure you're following up on that. So the success of that is after it's delivered, really working through those items. So as we talk about it, then we get into the project itself. So I want to, now talk about the story and bring Chris Rogers from QuickDraft involved here and talk about how we started this process. So obviously we've been working with QuickDraft for a while, and Chris picked up the phone and called us. Right? It's not something that we were actively discussing a Power Apps or a Canvas app with him, but Chris had some intuition as he was thinking about this and saying, hey, maybe there's something within the Power Platform or within a Microsoft solution that I can do to make this make this happen for us. So Chris, welcome and thanks for joining us. So when we talk through this, right, we have this job order entry app. So the first question, the question is why? What was it that brought you to us, and what were you trying to solve when you picked up that phone and called us?
Well, we've had an ongoing business process at QuickDraft that started, predates computer systems probably, and made its way through paper printing and into the Great Plains business system. But we were trying to get rid of paper. We were trying to bring things into Teams, and we had worked with you obviously in CRM and also with a couple other Power Apps that were solving some just little niggling problems in our business process. And after seeing some of the results of those two prior Power Apps, we took little pieces from each and I saw how we could build all of that into one to allow us to streamline the order entry process at QuickDraft. And eventually that tied it into Teams instead of being just a manual paper-based process.
When you originally reached out to us, Chris, did you think of all the applications that we were going to be using, or were you really kind of just thinking, it's probably only going to be one app or just a Power App that I'm going to build?
I knew I wanted a Power App, and I knew I wanted to tie it into Teams. But Rob, brought the magic together with the back end using Flow and all the intricacies to solve all the concerns and questions and features that I wanted to put into it.
So the departments that you were thinking about, what actual departments were you actually trying to assist when you were initially thinking about this?
So departments at QuickDraft?
Yeah, I think we were talking maybe the sales and engineering departments initially.
Yeah, so our order entry process starts off with a sales order, obviously coming from sales, and the way our business works, we have two sides of the business. So we have standard orders, which are small orders many times a day sometimes, and we have engineered systems, which are much larger orders and they come much less frequently. So the people's familiarity with the business systems, Great Plains, it varies depending on how often they're entering orders. And we were getting a lot of inconsistency, and we wanted to try to streamline that movement from sales to the order entry process, getting it into CRM, getting it into Dynamics Great Plains. And now that we're using Teams, and we decided we wanted to go paperless, and Teams was the platform we chose to try to do that, we needed also to communicate from sales to get these things put into Teams. And then eventually, as you'll see when we talk about the guts of the app, these things will get passed on to an engineer and allow them to kind of work their flow as they generate the order, create parts, release, and ship things to the customer.
Yeah, so I heard one word in there, Chris, when you mentioned that consistency, right? It's like, so this was a lot of manual steps, this process that were the whole job order entry piece.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, like I said, the old process started probably in WordPerfect, and somebody would take a form, type it out, print it, and give it to somebody and put it in a physical inbox. And more recently, that's evolved into an Excel document, but it was still clunky. It was still very manual, labor intensive to get all the cells filled out correctly each time. And literally, we still printed that out, put it in a blue folder, and would put it in someone's inbox to enter it into Great Plains and so on and so forth. And just to tie that out, that folder would get split out into production folders, sales folders, and purchasing folders, and engineering folders. And at the end of the process, we'd collect all these papers, stick it into a file room. And again, this was a way to eliminate a lot of that and put all that information into Teams.
Yeah, that's yeah. So I remember all the manual steps that was going on with that. So when we first started, it was, hey, here's a phone call. Here's an initial discussion. I know you and I talked. Then for instance, then we brought Rob involved from the technical side because obviously he has the expertise on how this works. So when I want to say we probably had two or three discussions in understanding what the requirements were, or our initial requirements. And then we kind of ironed out some of the details initially just to scope out the initial items. But really what we wanted to do is get into a proof of concept pretty quickly and look at that, and look at those items. So I think what I'm going to ask Rob to do now is share his screen. There was actually a form that we actually started with that Chris Rogers actually mocked up. This was the manual form that would have been worked on from a team perspective back at QuickDraft. So I'm going to have Rob share that information.
Hey everyone, this is Rob at Trellis Point. I'm a technical consultant that worked on this project, and what I have up on my screen here is you can see we marked up the original job order form that Chris Rogers provided. So as you can see, a lot of different fields, a lot of different data points that we're looking to capture with this Power App. With the help of Chris, he helped me kind of identify what was needed, what wasn't necessarily needed anymore as their business kind of transitioned over the years, and helped me identify, the different types of fields, if it's a text box or we have line items, like you can see further down the screen. So, this was really the start of the project, just taking, what Chris fed was, paper and files, and identifying the different areas or the different data we need to capture, and then, aligning that with what we were going to build in Power Apps.
So yeah, so Rob, when we got this from Chris, right, we kind of looked at it and said, "Oh boy," right, and and looked at this and said, "How are we going to translate this in?" But it's really just kind of understanding the manual process, right, and taking that into consideration of how thinking about how it'll go into the actual Canvas app that we built, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And actually, Chris Rogers, I would you say that this gave us the opportunity to maybe get rid of some of the clutter on this form? That we were able to kind of go through it with a fine tooth comb.
Absolutely. Another thing it did was tied in some data from our business system to eliminate how much typing the people would have to even do. So here you'd have to fill out each cell, and eventually, as you're going to show us later, you can tie right into pre-existing data and just drop down and choose what you want to fill in.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So yeah, so we went back and forth a couple times, right? And basically it was more about, okay, let's try to get some type of prototype together and begin to show it, because I think a lot of times what we see is when you can actually show and tell something, using an agile approach versus the old waterfall approach, right, where you try to build it and then come back 3 months later and show it to you. We want to do a very quick, agile development where within a week we're coming back and sharing some information and really diving into it and saying, hey, are we on spot or not? So by looking at a form like this and then taking it into the Power App platform and then coming back a week later and saying, hey, are we close or are we way off? It lends itself to be a lot more effective and efficient from both our perspective, the partner, and the end customer. So with that, I think it's probably worth just showing you what the job order entry app looks like. Um, you know, so Rob, will let you kind of shoot that. Show us what you got.
All right, so this was the end result. This is the Quick Draft app, as we named it. It's actually the combination of, as we alluded to earlier, a few different apps. It started as the change order app, and we have a serial number functionality, and we ended up combining it all into one app. So that gave users the kind of a one-stop shop in terms of create a new job order or a change order. But as you can see, we got a list of all the job orders that have been submitted, and just to pull up a quick example here. Here's one for a customer that did a couple months ago. Let me show you kind of the edit form. So this list here will display all the job orders that have been edited, but you can either retrieve a job order that's been entered or create a new one. And here's kind of the layout of the Power App. So we have kind of the header information with the job order on the left-hand side here, and then the detail over on the right, where you can add additional line items. And what's cool about the Power App is there's some formulas in here to calculate the total automatically and some pre-filled in fields. But Chris Rogers, do you want to kind of comment on the layout and design and maybe where we're getting some of this information?
Yeah, so as you can see, it's kind of a whittled down version of that Excel sheet that we showed is all marked up. And the header information up here at the top is mainly pulled right out of our Great Plains SQL database. So in the past, we would have problems where maybe LMI packaging had many locations all across the country or the world, and someone would say, I got an order for LMI packaging, but we may have had multiple customer record numbers in GP, so then it became a hunt and peck to figure out on the order entry side which LMI did they really need. So here we can just pull down the customer number. It automatically pulls the correct LMI packaging, or 3M there at the top was a good show because there's many 3M people in the country, and all these different numbers represent different locations. So the salesperson knows which customer they're talking to, selects that, and it eliminates errors and cross-referencing later on. Other things that we did were like the IC codes or the order type. Those are all internal things that we need to tell each other. Is this an engineered order, a standard order? Is it a service order? Who's the customer? They're just standard things we did that they would always have to type, or now just simply pulled down and picked from a quick list. Other things that I'll mention here while we're looking at it is like the quote number. We also had issues with people who just wanted to put down the number. Our quote numbers have a prefix, QTE, they have that suffix if it's a revision. Those were problems in the past too, getting people to put that in correctly. Now we have some logic behind this that will tell them, hey, it has to be in this format with, it must be formatted as such. So it's little checks and balances that, again, make it all work better for the end user and the person who has to enter it into the system.
So, Chris, in the past, before this, would people actually go to a filing cabinet and start looking up information and entering this?
Some of it came from CRM, some of it came from Great Plains, but it was that transition from the person who knows to the person who doesn't know, and getting it correct where, sometimes we'd get something entered in the system and realize there was a mistake, and it makes it much harder to fix once it's already into a business system or into CRM or then again into Teams. So I don't know that they were looking in filing cabinets, but all this stuff was ending up in a filing cabinet.
Right. And as we think about going back to that word consistency, right, with the integration of pulling information from the right sources, the user knows that this information, unless someone keyed it in wrong the other place, right, that this is kind of the source of truth for the information.
Yeah, Chris, and the other thing that I just comes to mind is this copy function that we added. Can you comment on kind of how that came about and how it's been beneficial?
Yeah, so anytime you have an order, you may want to, maybe the customer calls you back in a few months and you want to make a second order. So if you had the bulk of this information the same, it made it real easy to copy the job and create a new order, again, without even doing pull downs, because many of the things would copy over. But in our business, we have families of orders where maybe there's an engineered order that requires drawings that would have an MHXD suffix like this does here. But then we also might have a startup. So we sell a separate order to startup. That's an MHXS. So this would allow them to put in a quick family of orders where you just copy the MHXD, change the job number, and change the amount, and boom, you have a new order ready to go, and all the documentation follows along and gets sent right through to the order entry person.
Yeah, so talk about being agile, right? That wasn't part of the original scope, if I remember, and it was something naturally that occurred because it would be more timely for the people doing these.
Absolutely. I mean, just like with the two previous apps that we did together, as you get into these, you start to see how it works, and it gives you more ideas to make it more efficient and more automated.
Yeah, that's really the cool thing. So as you're thinking about these solutions, right, they're going to evolve, and they're going to kind of sometimes take different twists and turns, and just be agile with it, and know that you'll make mistakes, but you'll also be able to adapt quickly because the solution allows you to do that.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah, and it was really easy to, leverage some of the functionality of Power Apps and some of these custom formulas with the Canvas app just to capture some of that data that we already have on a form and map it to a new record all in one simple action. So as Chris mentioned earlier, the bulk of the data is the same. You just maybe have a new job order, and the formulas in Power Apps made that really easy.
Yeah, that's great. So, Rob, do you want to show us kind of the flow of the apps then, unless there's anything more here you'd like to show us?
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure. Yeah, the Canvas app here, serves as, the user's kind of, front door into this process. But, really the whole power is driven by Power Automate. So yeah, I would love to show you guys exactly what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, it'd be cool. I know, and for those of you watching it, sometimes it's difficult, but that's why we're putting a little a diagram. Rob will show you kind of how this flows through, and then we'll get into a little bit of the guts of the application here as well.
Absolutely. All right, Chris. Yeah. So just as you mentioned, there is a lot going on in the behind the scenes with Power Automate, and we just showed off the Canvas app where users go to put in their information, but there's a lot that's going on. I just want to do a quick overview of it, exactly what's happening in the back end using Power Automate, and then I'll actually show you the flow so you can kind of see, some of the tools that are available in Power Automate, because that really was the driver behind all this. So as I just showed, we have the Power App. That's kind of the first stop with this process. So users visit the app visit via a website, or they can actually also access it on a tablet, mobile device. So it's available for multiple devices, but I understand they're just logging on through a computer, putting in that data. And then, as Chris Rogers mentioned, we're actually feeding a lot of that data from Great Plains into the application. So customer information, like the customer name and address, gets pre-populated. Some of these business-specific codes or drop-downs, like the IC code and order types, Some of that is supplied through SQL queries that Chris wrote up for me. So he's able to take some of that specific data in Great Plains, create a SQL view out of it, and then I could use that as the data source for a drop-down list, which was really cool. So that allows us to do custom filters and get us the exact data that we need, and again, really save the user's time. So that's how they actually fill out the application. Now, once they submit the order, it gets saved to SharePoint. So for this application, we use SharePoint as kind of the data warehouse in a way. And we use SharePoint because it was accessible for everyone in the organization. And, Chris, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit to that, but Power Apps did make it really easy to hook into SharePoint. So do you remember some of those early discussions why we ended up going with SharePoint as kind of the data warehouse?
I don't exactly remember that. I know that I had a full list of data, for instance, back on our serial number database, and it was very easy for you to port it in and out of SharePoint and give me a reference point where now people could go quickly look up, in that example, serial numbers, but in the future they'll be able to look up these customers by any piece of information just by doing a quick SharePoint search, much like you do a Google search, on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it was it was really easy to work with, and like Chris said, we kind of already had the structure, so it hooked right in. So once that data got saved to SharePoint, that's really what triggered this whole process to get started, and that's where Power Automate comes in. So we put a trigger in place that when an item was created in SharePoint, it would kick off this flow that really drove this pretty complex process. The first thing that flow did was enrich the data a little bit. As Chris mentioned, we were trying to use this app to kind of standardize the job order entry process, specifically like the job order number. Instead of having the salespeople have to look up what the next job order would be and then sequence it if there's multiple iterations of that job order, we're able to do that in Flow by just querying what job orders were already out there and then finding the next job order in sequence. So we took that work off the user and did that automatically. And there were some other things as well, like the actual name of the job order. We had the number, but the file name that got created, and there's some other points. But once we enriched the data, then we actually populated a Word document. So we have a Word document sitting out there in SharePoint that we can map data into. And that actually took place of that old form that we showed you a few minutes ago. So all the markups and everything, we're able to redesign that using a Word template and then using Flow, map in values dynamically. So no one had to, create that by hand or fill things out by hand. It would be all done automatically. And again, driven by the Power App. So once that Word template was populated, then we needed to find a place to put it. And that's where we actually went back to SharePoint to find a specific folder. So again, there was a specific structure on SharePoint on where these job order forms should be stored, and it was by job order number and, again, the different sequencing. So again, using some logic, we're able to dynamically look up the available folders on SharePoint and then store that file in the appropriate place. That way, when someone goes to look at it or look for it, it's already there. They don't have to manually move it. After the file got stored, the next thing we did was look for the appropriate channel in Teams. So I'll let Chris speak to this in just a second, but we had to find the appropriate Teams channel because each team was assigned to a job order, and that's how we're able to make sure the right people were involved with the tasks that had to be completed for this job order. So Chris, can you talk a little bit about how you guys use Teams? To this day, I think you guys are some of the more creative implementation of Teams on how you guys break it out.
Yeah, so we've chosen to use Teams as our home base for all these files, communications, tasks, lists, all these other things that we're doing to process an order. So, what Rob is doing for us here in that second SharePoint step is he's actually looking up what quote number was entered on that form. And then when he saves the document and gives it the proper name, it plops it right into the correct quote quote document library, sorry, in SharePoint. When we get to Teams, what we do is we actually create a tab in the channel that points back to the quote that this order was generated from. So everybody has quick access to these sales documents. We also use Planner, and we have templates set up for different style jobs. So an engineered order might have different processes that the engineer is going to go through as he releases orders, gets approvals, sends out drawings, things like that. So these tasks are being able to be tied into from the Power Platform. Rob's going to show you how he can create tasks off of our templates, and it guides our people through the process. Those same tasks can be handed off to different people. So if I'm waiting for you to get something done, you can check off that you're done and hand the task to me, and I know immediately that the step ahead of me is complete, and I can do my next step. And then finally, I think the other thing we use quite a bit here at QuickDraft is OneNote. So the actual document that Rob creates here with the Power App and sticks in SharePoint, we then print into a OneNote notebook, and that's virtually the representation of what used to be a physical blue file. So all of our files are in the OneNote, the copies of the quote, customer POs, engineering documents and calculations and designs, all that stuff is all accessible through Teams, through OneNote on a simple tab that just points to the Teams notebook.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I know we had a little bit of a challenge there, but I think, from an organization standpoint with all these files floating around, that, just that step alone, I think was pretty huge. So yeah, once we find the right channel in Teams, then the next thing we did was create a planner task. So this is where, really the whole flow comes to fruition, because the task then actually looks to a template based on the type of order it is and a few other attributes on the order. So we were able to actually copy attributes from essentially a template task and map them over to a new task. So that way, again, didn't have to be recreated manually. It dynamically pulled the tasks that need to be completed, really the checklist items based on the type of order, and then creates a task and assigns it to the right person. And you don't want to forget, too, it also takes that Word document that we created earlier and actually attaches it to the task. So what started off as, just a Canvas app for people to put in data, eventually leads to a planner task that's, specific to a certain type of job order assigned to a specific person with that document already pre-populated with everything that they need. So again, in just actually a few short seconds of this Power Automate running, you have, some data entered to task completed, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's amazing when you think about all the solutions and the apps that we're working with. It's not just the Canvas app or the Power app that you got. Look at all the different sets that we have out there and integrating with, and really it's a testament to Rob, you and Chris at being able to achieve this. And it goes quick. So when as for the partners out there, when you're looking at this, don't think of it just as one solution set, right? Use all the different tools that are available to you, and it's amazing how you can bring these items together. So this is great.
Absolutely.
So, Rob, I know we just a little bit just from the guts of the system, and it's always hard to show, but just curious, looking inside the Power Platform and just to show off a little bit of what it looks like.
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure. Show you guys behind the scenes a little bit.
Yeah, so as Rob's doing that, there's the actual accessing of the system, and we won't get too much in detail, but just kind of show everybody what it can look like and how you can navigate that throughout the Power Platform.
Yeah. So what I have up on my screen now is actually the Canvas App Designer. So I won't get too in the nitty gritty of what we built here, but what I have actually up on my screen are the different data sources. So I just wanted to showcase really one of the great benefits of Canvas apps is being able to pull in all these different data sources. What you see in red here, these are all the custom SQL views that Chris built for me. And so some of these are supplying something as simple as a drop-down list. Some of these are much more complex and have customer data and addresses in them. So we're able to get a lot of different connections to SQL. We also have a connection to Teams. So this was used pretty creatively. And actually, Chris, this was your idea. We had a little bit of a challenge with that Teams functionality and finding the right channel. So with this Teams connector for the Canvas app, we're actually able to display all available Teams for a particular user. And the way we use that is we filter the team based on that job order number. So just by passing in kind of a simple filter, before that job order is even submitted, the application knows which channel it's going to go to. And now we do have some logic in case you can't find the right team, but I thought that was pretty cool that Microsoft made that Teams connector available. And then you can see our connections to SharePoint. And then we also created kind of a small little table in the Dataverse for a custom drop-down set. And then something else Canvas apps provide is what's called a collection, which is kind of its own view from different data sources. So that's kind of just the background of the app itself. But again, really the highlight here is the flow that runs all this. So what I have up on my screen now is the Power Automate Maker, or the Maker portal for Power Automate. And this is the flow that gets triggered once that new SharePoint item is created. So you can see our trigger up here is triggered off the job orders list. So once that new job order hits, it triggers this flow to run. We do check to make sure that the order's actually been submitted, get the order lines, set some variables that are used later on, and then we get into some of the fun stuff here. So we have some transformations that get done, and that's some of the data enrichment I talked about earlier, depending on what type of order it is. And then once we have all that data ready to go, here's where we can actually populate a Word template based on that data that we have from SharePoint entered through the app. But again, also some things that may have been some of the functions like adjusting the date and time, adding the line items, and formatting some other things like currency and some things. But you can see it's a pretty big document. There's quite a bit on this list that we're able to pop in here. So once that document gets created, then we do things like compose the file name and get the planner task notes ready. And then here's a cool step. So we found this out a little bit later in the project, but initially it was built to create the document one time. But Chris, you came to me and you said, well, what happens if we need to make an update? So we added some additional logic here that if someone actually goes back in and updates that record in the Power App, well, we need the document to be recreated. And then we need it to update anywhere that document's been shared, whether it's in Teams or on SharePoint as a file. So this is where we can see if a file already exists. And something else we ran into, if it was trying to update a file that somebody had open, we had some failures. So we actually used this Teams action to message the person that has the file open to let them know that the file has failed to update. Just kind of give them a heads up that they need to close it. So, Chris Rogers, do you want to comment on it all? I know that was kind of a gotcha. A little bit later on the project.
No, this was kind of key because as we went through this, these were a couple of the features that we thought of after the fact. It wasn't part of the original scope, but then we thought, wow, what if we wanted to update the document and you were able to update the name of the document, the fields on the document, and you could even touch the planner task if anything changed that related to that. But then, we started trying it and somebody was waiting and waiting, couldn't see an update. And we realized, hey, it's because they have it open. So this was key. I mean, this was awesome. And this actually sends them a message and it posts in a general place in Teams to also alert them, hey, this was held open and this is who has it open. And it easily allowed us to get past that problem and just keep moving and get the updates rolling.
And then we have a step to create the task if it hasn't been created already. So there's where we create the task initially. But then, as I talked about earlier, it wasn't just adding some random things to a task. We wanted to copy some things from a task that already existed, so kind of use it as a template. And we actually used a custom connector with Power Automate to do that. So we're able to use the Microsoft Graph to query a specific plan or task to get its attributes, and then use those attributes to map those over to the new task that was created, which was pretty cool. It was the first time working with that. And again, Power Automate supported that, which was really nice. And then we have some step if it's a high priority or called a rush order. So if that job order has been tagged as a red tag, then we can also flag the task appropriately as well using some of those color tags. And in addition to that, again, if it already existed, it would update the task and the task details, map the document over. So again, they could revisit the Power App, put in some new information, and then it would just kind of resync everything instead of either creating a duplicate or failing. So definitely took some time to build this out, but the end result was what you see here. So actually, I have the Quick Draft app up. I forgot to mention that we've embedded that right in the Teams. But I'll show you an example of what one of these looks like. So here we go. So all these checklist items, these got mapped over for one of these templates using those custom connectors. And then here's that attachment. And this is the Word document that got created automatically through Flow. And it just, again, mapped all the fields. And if someone found that something was missing or needed to be corrected, again, they could revisit the Power App, put in some new information, resubmit it, and it would actually update this document and then reshare it in all of its locations.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. So that Teams channel that you're in right there, I know that's really the step before that. That's Chris. That's really what the end user really gets into, right?
It is, and I don't know if I mentioned this before, but we use these planner tasks as a to-do list. So the order entry person keeps getting these assigned to her as they come and become orders. So she can just work all day long right out of this list. And as she completes these tasks, now she knows that it's time to move on to the next order. And then she actually takes these and can copy them into the final team so that this will get assigned to the engineer. And those are all his steps that he needs to do or she needs to do to process that order.
Yeah, so for the partners out there, this is really the end result, right? The items that led up to this, what Rob was showing from the job order entry app to the Power App building itself and to the flow of everything. But sometimes it's hard to visualize what's actually going on and what all the steps that are happening. But what Rob is showing right here, this is the end result of all that data that's getting compiled and put in front of the end user so that they can really do their job, in a much more effective way on a daily basis. And the users are going to this. So yeah, is there any other information here, Chris or Rob, that you wanted to talk through, or?
I think we covered it. Again, this has everything. Trina is the woman's name who enters our orders, and that's everything she needs. Everything's in that document or those checklists or the notes right there. Some of those notes come from the order entry application as well, like the special terms. We'll put those in as a task list down below, and those get assigned out to the people who have to bill.
So really, don't just stop yourself in one area. Think about all the solutions out there that are available to you with all the Microsoft tool sets that you can get your hands on. So for all of you that saw that presentation there, it's great to share with you the journey that we went through. Obviously there's a design, we deliver. All the tools that we're using, and it's a continuous piece of evolvement, right? You don't just look at it once, but look at it over time, and don't be afraid to change things on the fly, and especially using the rapid or agile development. It makes that so much easier for everybody to see things and to test that information out. So hopefully you get a good perspective on how this, one journey of a customer and a partner coming together, and it's simply by the customer, in this case, Chris Rogers from Quick Draft calling us up and everybody getting together and hearing what the request is and how we can do it. So we encourage you to go out there and look for those solutions and be open and learn the new tool sets, because what's available to you is very, very powerful. So with that, we appreciate everything that Ingram has done for us, and we are excited to be presenting here. And we'll leave it at that. And again, thank you, Ingram, and everybody involved for allowing us to present this journey. Have a good day.